Hello, Sacral Beauties. Welcome to the She Sacral podcast, where we focus on helping women recover their bodies from chronic burnout. If you're new, my name is Lindsey Christian. I am a holistic menstrual cycle coach and burnout recovery guide for women. Throughout this series, we've been talking about womb burnout, and in the previous episode, we talked about the physical signs that your womb is burned out. But in today's episode, we're going to talk about how the mind impacts the womb and how the womb impacts the mind, and how when we're under mental stress, this shuts down our womb, not only our physical womb, but the energy of our womb as well. If you've ever felt like your mind and body are constantly fighting each other, like your thoughts are loud but your intuition is silent, then this episode will help you understand why. So let's begin with understanding the mind-womb connection. Your mind and your womb are in constant conversation, even when you're not fully aware of it. Every thought, every belief, every mental loop you hold, every what if, or why is this not working out, sends a signal through your nervous system, through your hormones, and through your breath. And your womb feels everything. So your womb is not just a reproductive organ. It's truly an energetic barometer that measures and lets you know where you're at mentally and emotionally. When your mind is overactive or stressed, the womb tightens and it restricts blood flow and suppresses that creative and sensual energy. So let's talk about that bridge of where the womb connects, because we can say, well, I don't know about that. I mean, my mind is in my head, my womb is somewhere else. So how does that connect? So in your brain, we have our hypothalamus, which is kind of like our communications department. And that hypothalamus talks directly through your ovaries via hormones. And your hormones are like these tiny messengers running through your body carrying instructions. But when stress takes over, those messengers get lost and your womb feels it first. And mentally, that puts us on edge, which puts your body on alert. And that alert is going to create chronic stress and high cortisol in your body. And when cortisol is high, that impacts your womb's hormones like estrogen and progesterone, creating irregular cycles, PMS, fatigue, and even fertility challenges. And so your womb can't relax enough to repair itself, to ovulate, and to flow properly. Thoughts of fear, control, worry, comparison tighten the pelvic muscles, but thoughts of love, trust, and safety increase blood flow, libido, and hormone balance. So your body doesn't know the difference between a real threat and a constant stream of anxious thoughts. So every time you overthink, your womb feels it. And sometimes we don't feel the results of that right away, but over time, as it accumulates and it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds, we start to see the physical signs of those things, as I mentioned in our previous episode. And so your mind is really representative of the masculine energy. It's very electric. It sends a lot of electrical currents throughout your body, and your womb is magnetic. So when your mental energy dominates, the womb becomes overwhelmed, and that shuts down to protect you. And your womb stores unprocessed emotions, memories, and beliefs, especially around femininity, sensuality and sexuality, creativity, and safety. So when you start to quiet the mind, your womb can be heard again through intuition, sensation, along with your cyclical nature. And so when we look at today's modern burnout, it's often the result of living in our heads, not so much in our bodies. When we're constantly over-researching and over-analyzing and comparing ourselves, this leads to mental burnout. And even our healing process starts to feel like a project versus embodiment. Certainty is what gives the mind a feeling of safety. And the womb needs that safety. So the mind is constantly feeling uncertain, which, let's be honest, for the last 5 years, it probably has. We've gone through a lot. When the mind is feeling uncertain, that tells the body that it's in a space of danger, and that will then lead the womb to shut down. The other big piece is that because our womb is shutting down, because we're under so much stress, we're dealing with all of the symptoms. Rather, we're dealing with PCOS, we're getting the chin hair, we're getting the belly fat, weight gain, we're dealing with infertility, we're dealing with all of these challenges that come with our womb shutting down. We may try to force the womb to start performing. We start to force the womb to have regular cycles and to have high libido. And that's only going to give us more resistance, right? Because the womb does not respond to pressure, she responds to presence. Your womb is truly like your third brain. So while we look at those different parts of ourselves, we have the brain in our head, we have our heart, we have our gut, and we have our womb. I really consider these to be unique brains in our bodies because there's different areas of ourselves that hold a lot of intelligence, and the way that they operate, they have a lot of intention. They're not just there floating around. These parts of ourselves and our bodies communicate even within each other. So our womb is consistently communicating with our brain, our gut is consistently communicating with our brain, and our heart is consistently communicating with our brain. And through that communication, that then expresses what's going on the outside is where we have these physical symptoms. So while many people see the womb as something that's just this reproductive organ, it's not really essential, you can live without it, I'm here to tell you that as a woman, the energy of creativity and intuition and nurturing energy is always that energetic part of yourself, which will remain there with or without a physical womb. But the womb itself contributes to so much more than just reproduction. It contributes to your memory, to how sharp your brain is, to your hair, to your skin, to your mood, to your bone density. It contributes to so much that is not just isolated as this one piece of yourself. And so the more that we can be able to embrace this beautiful womb, the more that we can understand it, the more that we can be able to get connected back to ourselves. So we talked about how our minds impact our wombs, but let's talk a little bit more about how the womb impacts the mind, because there is very much this two-way street where, yes, the womb can shut down, but there's also this big, beautiful part that's communicating back towards us. And as a woman, you know exactly what I'm talking about, that it impacts so much of how you think, right? You know at those different times throughout your cycle, for those that have cycles, how it impacts your mood. Those times where you feel foggy, those times where your memory is not so sharp. Women that are going through menopause can often even lose their memory because of low estrogen. So it's so much bigger than we really realize. Even breaking down our cyclical nature, how much our mind changes. They've done so many studies where they literally look at a brain scan of a woman throughout the different phases of her cycle, and it literally can look like the brain of completely different people. Our wombs truly are very, very fascinating in how they communicate to our minds and how they change our minds even. So we have those womb hormones like estrogen and progesterone and even testosterone, and that literally impacts how we show up mentally. Estrogen actually boosts cognitive function. This is why when your estrogen starts to go down throughout your cycle, you might notice that you might even be a little bit clumsy, that estrogen is impacting your hand-eye coordination. It impacts you so much more than just reproduction. And progesterone, when it's balanced and when we have plenty of it, helps you to feel at ease. It's a natural antidepressant. But so many of us actually are not being able to get enough of the progesterone because we're either not ovulating because our insulin is really high, especially for women who have PCOS, or if you're under a lot of chronic stress, or if you're eating a lot of sugar. A lot of times we're self-medicating with all these external things, but our body holds so much wisdom to support us naturally. But many of us don't really even know that or realize that. And so we know we feel pretty bad a lot of times, right? And so we're trying to supplement that outside of ourselves. But when our minds and wombs are balanced, you'll find that you will feel a lot more balanced. So the womb impacts the mind just as much as the mind impacts the womb. So again, going back to if you're wondering, how does this connect? It connects through hormones, it connects through the nervous system, and it connects through your bloodstream. So there's a whole lot going on. So now that we broke down the mind-womb connection and how much that plays a role, I do want to talk about the fear of fertility and the rejection of the womb, because that can create a major blockage towards being able to really heal your womb space. So many women today carry quiet tension around fertility. Even just hearing the word fertility and reproduction holds a lot of tension and a lot of weight. And it's not just the fear of getting pregnant, even though that is there, but the fear of what fertility represents to many. For many, it represents having a heavy responsibility, feeling diminished into just being a body, feeling judged based on your level of fertility, feeling controlled by someone else, feeling like you have to be dependent on another being because you know you can't do it all. And it's very overwhelming for many. However, that fear is one of the biggest energetic blockages to healing the womb. It starts to create a rejection of the womb. The rejection is truly a rejection of vulnerability and creative power, which are both of the things that the womb represents. So some root causes of these fears around fertility is societal conditioning. Women are told that fertility is a liability. It's going to keep you from succeeding. It's going to keep you from getting the job that you want. That it's something to control, it's something to suppress or silence. Or birth control culture and shame around menstruation, teaching that the womb is inconvenient, or that it's dirty, or that it's something bad. Fertility starts to become synonymous with risk versus creation. Even down to trauma and ancestral memories, where many lineages carry trauma around childbirth, miscarriages, even forced pregnancies, or being punished for feminine expression. And the body remembers everything, even without having the conscious memory. The fear energy can live in that womb space. And so when we look at what's going on today, the nervous system looks at the modern stress of what we're going through, career pressures, financial insecurity, instability, unstable relationships. This all signals to the body that this is unsafe for reproduction. So the body shuts down fertility to protect you. And that looks like irregular cycles, low libido, PMS symptoms, maybe not even having a cycle. All of that is actually self-protection, not failure. Your body is so wise and so intelligent, but there's so much out there telling you that something's wrong with your body. But truly, it's trying to protect you, always trying to heal. That's its job. And a lot of times, your body's trying to communicate with you through symptoms, but we don't know what the symptoms mean, and we suppress the symptoms further. We take a pill, or we ignore it, or we just muddle through it, and we don't know what it's trying to communicate. And that's not your fault, because there's so much misinformation out there. There's not enough education around women's health. A lot of it has been thrown out. It's because of our cyclical nature. They couldn't test it. So we have to do the work ourselves and taking the time to learn and understand our bodies and ourselves on a deeper level. So when fertility is feared, that womb becomes unconsciously exiled. We reject that womb. We say, I don't want you. You are causing me so much pain and frustration, and I don't want this. And we reject the womb instead of the actual things that are creating the challenges. And that womb feels that tension, and that restricts blood flow and creates an even deeper hormonal imbalance. And so, for instance, let's say you deal with a lot of painful cramping with your cycles if you have a cycle. And so, because we are experiencing the feeling or experiencing the pain, we don't know the reasons why sometimes. And I've gone through this myself, as I spoke about in my previous episode. We don't know what's causing that pain, but we know that we feel pain only with this one particular thing. So we say, I don't like this, right? Or even just having cycles in general. We don't understand the purpose of it sometimes. We don't understand what's really going on. So we're like, I hate this. This is the worst thing ever, right? And we look at it and we try to punish that part of ourselves. But what if I told you that there's a deeper message that's there? That pain is actually not meant to be there, even though we're taught womanhood is painful. It's a painful journey. All women just experience so much pain, right? But what if I told you that the body's saying to you, hey, we have a lot of inflammation happening in our bodies. There's a lot of pain because we're very inflamed. Maybe we're having a lot of foods that are very high inflammatory foods, but we don't realize it. When we're under a lot of stress, we have a lot of inflammation in our bodies. And so when we're going through our cycles and there's a lot of cramping, the body will use inflammation just so that it can be able to break down that lining. And so we're experiencing that pain. We're like, I don't like the womb, right? It just makes me feel bad. But not realizing that the body's saying, hey, we actually have a lot of inflammation here. Or, hey, you actually have a lot of estrogen in here. Nobody's teaching you that. But if we understood that, hey, we can actually clear out this estrogen. We can actually work with the gut and the liver to clear out this estrogen so we don't have to deal with this problem. So we start to gain a deeper understanding that the womb is not the problem. It's a lot of all these other things that's creating a lot of problems for the womb. And the womb is really trying very hard to do all that it can to protect and heal. So we have to take the time to deep dive and understand our bodies as much as we can. And again, I know there's a lot of information out there. It's so overwhelming. We are constantly being showed so much bite-sized PC information on social media, and you're trying to put all this stuff together, and you're kind of on your DIY wellness journey, trying to stick things together, and it's very overwhelming. So that's why I created the Pleasure Wire, which makes everything so simple and so easy and so fun for you to be able to actually have this beautiful sanctuary, to come back home to yourself, to understand your body, to learn how to work with your body, to be able to nourish your body in a way that feels good, moving your body, that doesn't create a bunch of cortisol, and tuning in with yourself, and a beautiful community of women along the same journey, so you're never alone. So if that's something that you know you need, then click the link down below. And I completely understand when you're burned out, your body shows it. And that can create a whole nother layer of burnout where it's like, oh, great, my body is completely falling apart now. And we can run into over-consuming all of this wellness content, which is going to make your nervous system even more stimulated. And then feeling that pressure to try to do everything right. It's exhausting. The supplements, the diet, the detoxes. The truth is you can't outthink your healing. The womb responds to energy, safety, and embodiment, not a bunch of checklists. So when information feels heavy and chaotic, that means that it's time to simplify and slow down. So this is where the nervous system regulation really starts to become the foundation. So we want to start to soften that mental load so that the body can finally rest and exhale and heal. The womb is also very reflective of how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our sense of self-worth. And so when we are in this space where, maybe you feel unsafe in your relationships, maybe you feel like you're constantly trying to prove yourself, maybe you feel like, you are trying to work really hard to make ends meet. I know even for myself, and some of you may be able to relate, if you're going through entrepreneurship, oh my goodness, we know how much weight we can carry with that. And I'll be sure to do a whole series on just business and entrepreneurship because I think that's truly something we need to cover. But when you're going through that and you're putting yourself out there, there's a lot of vulnerability in that space, right? And you might feel rejection. You might feel like what you have to share is not good enough. You might feel all of these things, all of that. The body holds that. The body absorbs that. The body feels that. And we continuously fuel that energy in our bodies with our minds. And so beliefs that you can have about yourself, all of the comparison. I mean, even when you go on social media, there's someone flaunting their bodies. There's someone that's flaunting what they have or showing this and that. And it can really be very exhausting and create a lot of danger signals in your body. So we're exposed to just so much more than we ever were. So picture this for a moment. You're swiping through your feed for just a few minutes. You're seeing dozens of faces, friends, strangers, influencers, ads. Your brain doesn't ask for permission. It just sucks it all in, expecting to process it. That is wildly unnatural to your system. Our brains are built to recognize thousands of faces, maybe around 5,000 on average across a lifetime. But in 1 hour of social media, it is possible to see hundreds to thousands of faces, overlapping, layered, flashing quickly across your feed, stories, ads. That amount of volume of the amount of people that we're seeing is not natural to our unique design. So our ancestors might see their family, maybe neighbors, maybe even a few dozen faces a day, but not hundreds per hour. And every face demands that recognition, attention, judgment, even if it's unconsciously, that can trigger envy, jealousy, comparison, feeling like you're not good enough. And that's mental energy that your nervous system has to match. And so constantly seeing all of that forces your brain into alert, shifting attention over and over again, which increases more stress, it fragments your concentration, and it steals from deeper layers of awareness. And so over time, your brain becomes hungry for novelty. Dopamine hits, patterns, scrolls, and it loses patience for stillness, listening, and even those subtle signals that your body's whispering. And so this overload makes your nervous system very rigid, reactive, and your womb, which truly wants that feeling of safety, softness, and depth, shuts down in response. And so when I talk about mental burnout, your mind is always processing, planning, anticipating. Constantly being on our phones is just a big multiplier. And so we have that constant overstimulation meeting our own internal demands. And in your body, especially your womb, is the first to suffer from that crossfire. So it's so important to understand just how much our mind really can impact the womb. And let's say you're like, well, I take a break from social media, but I'm really focused on this certain goal. I'm really focused on building my business. I'm really focused on my work. I'm really focused on school. We often forget about our bodies in that, don't we? And I want you to ask yourself, am I being the best manager to myself? Because oftentimes we're not. Oftentimes our body is giving us cues like I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, can I move, can I rest? But our minds will completely override that. Without realizing it, we put our bodies in a deeper deficit until the body is screaming to us with all of these symptoms. And we're like, whoa, what happened? Why is my body not working anymore? We have to look at ourselves holistically. And I think it's important that we put so much more power back into the wisdom of our bodies. Our bodies were formed before our minds. Our heart was the first thing to be formed, so it holds so much intelligence. With every beat, it developed a deeper part of yourself. And each of these continues to expand and expand and expand, and it creates you. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is the complete opposite side of mental burnout on our womb energy, which is where many women can reject the womb. Many women can feel rejected without having a womb or even without having breasts. So I want to make it very clear that for any woman that has gone through so much challenge in life, whether you've gone through different surgeries or different illnesses that have impacted your body, or even just going through the menopausal journey altogether, sometimes that can make us feel like less of a woman. And that's not true at all. I never want any woman to feel like that. And that can create mental burnout on our womb energy. And that womb energy is our creative nature, our intuition, and that powerful energy that lives within your entire being, your nurturing energy, your softness. You have gone through so much that you carry a deep, deep level of wisdom. You've been through life, right? You've been through a lot. So I want to make that very clear that we can experience that mental burnout from several different areas, from rejecting the womb, from feeling rejected in ourselves for not having the womb, for feeling so much. And I just want you to take a moment to just pause, know that that energy is still there. Take a deep breath and release. This is not a reflection of your worthiness. This is not a reflection of who you are as a person. You are so much deeper than that. You have given so much to those around you, to this world. And this is only to bring awareness to the connection between our minds and our wombs. So, if you're in the space where you're overwhelmed and you're tired of fighting with your body and you want to work with it to feel softer, safer, and even more connected, then the Pleasure Wire is where that journey begins. So if you're ready for that journey, then click the link down below. This concludes today's episode. We have so much more to cover, so be sure to follow and subscribe, because up next we're going to dive into the even deeper emotional layer of the womb burnout. Thank yourself so much for showing up today, and thank you for tuning in to the She Sacral podcast.